this time it is different. No matter how many times you heard the phrase, this time it is really different. Hello and welcome to Kotak Life market commentary for FY23. Just when it looked like we were done with COVID, there comes the Russia-Ukraine situation. In my opinion, we are likely to begin FY23 at what I'd like to call a peak noise position. Over last couple of years, the world and the world markets are driven by so many isolated events that have contributed to a lot of noise around what would otherwise have been a signal driving or a trend which is driving the market. And increasingly it is becoming more and more difficult to isolate the signal from otherwise noise. If you think it's tough to be a market participant in this era, try being a central banker. During and post-COVID era, the fiscal and monetary excesses continue to remain in the system. They are yet to be unwound. Before the central banks could even begin to unwind these excesses, we have this asynchronous global recovery, extremely high commodity and oil prices, and to top it all, the Russia-Ukraine situation. We also have had an extensive debate around the character of inflation. Whether it is transitory, whether it is structural, whether it is external, supply driven, shock driven, wage driven. For whatever it's worth, while there may not be an answer or an easy answer to defining the character of inflation, what is clear is that the inflation has overstayed its welcome and something definitely needs to be done about the same. In our opinion, at the end of FY23, we have a certain set of market expectations regarding the forward evolution of inflation and growth expectations within the market. The realities may turn out to be materially different in some cases and may eventually align to the expectations in some other cases, because we are in a world where things are different for different countries. Eurozone is struggling with a fairly weak growth, very high commodity prices, and still the inflation refuses to go away. US probably has seen the best of growth and their central bank is trying to catch up for the lost tightening that it should have done over past 5 to 6 quarters. And in doing so, it is probably scaring the market that they will end up with a recession. India has been more stable and predictable in its monetary policy response during and post-COVID era. We have persisted with the right kind of accommodation for the period of time that we required it. We have gradually begun to unwind, although probably too slowly for some participants' comfort, but we have begun to unwind some of the COVID policies in order to normalize our framework. And to some extent, our bond markets are also aligning to the expected monetary tightening over the period to come. Not sure if equities are fully in agreement with bonds or with the central bank hypothesis that tightening may lead to some kind of growth slowdown. Maybe partly it is because of the fact that market participants do not expect the central bank tightening to be disruptive to equities, partly because of the fact that there is still abundant liquidity in the system, and even with central banks hiking rates for as long as the promise of liquidity and its abundance stays in the system, the asset prices overall will probably do well. So what do we expect in FY23 with this backdrop? Well, we expect that to some extent the monetary policies, the fiscal policies of the world will either be affected by or will be driven by the overstaying of inflation and inflationary pressures in the system. We'll see some kind of scaling back of the quantity of money. We will see an increase in price of the money through rate hikes, different paces for different countries, but we are more likely to see rate hikes than cuts overall, China being probably the only exception. The fact that the central banks will acknowledge inflationary pressures and will realign the policies to moderate and tame those pressures, the markets will also realign. So in our opinion, bond markets will probably underperform during the first half of FY23, but may end up offering an attractive entry point for investors in the second half. Equities on the other hand are unlikely to probably match the performance of last couple of years. So while we will see equity performance, it may remain moderated or muted in comparison to what we have seen over last 18 to 24 months. Markets are high on post-stimulus hangover, and as it is scaled back, there will be a reality check. So while we are still dancing to the music may be about to stop very soon, and that, dear friends, is what FY23 is most likely to be about. Thank you.